Welcome, ladies and gents, to Geek Boulevard. Steve here, and it's time for another movie review. I recently checked out the latest film from Osgood Perkins, The Monkey, based on the short story by Stephen King, and it is time for me to give my full and final verdict on this latest adaptation in the King bibliography. I'm going to be delving into spoilers later in the review, of course, so I've included timestamps down below to make it a little easier to skip that portion of the review if you want to go in as blind as possible, and I highly suggest that you do. The Monkey is written and directed by Osgood Perkins. It is rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 38 minutes. When twin brothers find a mysterious wind-up monkey, a series of outrageous deaths tear their family apart. 25 years later, the monkey begins a new killing spree, forcing the estranged siblings to confront the cursed toy. Gonna start off with the good. I am so impressed with Osgood Perkins as a filmmaker at this point that I honestly need to go back for sure and witness some of his other work before Longlegs, before The Monkey, because the guy is very versatile in terms of how he tackles different aspects of horror in a very human way, but gives just a little bit of other things to kind of spice the whole experience up just a bit more. Longlegs had that type of aspect too, even though I liked it maybe a little bit less than I was expecting to, but there's no denying that his unique eye has drawn me into his projects easily. The Monkey has definitely solidified that notion. It is such a well shot movie. Everything from the lighting to certain angles and those creepy up-close shots of that unsettling monkey with that devilish smile, it all worked in unison to make something very darkly comedic in all the best ways. Now, taking on writing duties in addition to directing is no easy feat, I'm sure, for any filmmaker. Writing is hard, plain and simple. And writing comedy for a genre that is essentially the opposite of that can be either great and ironic or just flat out terrible. And I'm happy to report that every joke in this movie landed, at least for me. This is a script that is clearly not serious, it doesn't take itself seriously, and it runs with that. It enjoys that, it plays with that fact. The irony of some of these scenes in itself was just funny in terms of the basic setup, the framing, the dialogue, the whole execution. The dialogue most of all, with a fantastic and funny performance from main star Theo James, who plays dual roles of twin brothers Bill and Hal, and his delivery in this film was perfect in terms of like his reactions and everything. Overall though, I was just so impressed with how smartly written and witty this script turned out to be. I also think the freak deaths that occur on screen add even more to the humor with how like over the top they actually become. I don't want to spoil those for you, so I think you should just see the film for yourself to see what I mean, but they literally make no sense and aren't realistic in any way, and that's the best part. It might not be along the lines of, say, like Final Destination, but they were very comical and gory, so if that's what you're looking for, then you are definitely in luck. This has a little more CGI involved, mostly due to it being an adaptation of a Stephen King story rather than an original work, and James Wan is also a producer on this, so I'm sure that helped increase the budget just a bit more, but I think the CGI, when present, was smartly and carefully used. Most of the time it was a pretty good amount of practical effects and blood and limbs, body parts, all that kind of thing, so I was happy to see that. The CGI was a little noticeable in some instances, but it wasn't jarring, and I didn't feel like I was pulled out of those moments because of bad special effects or anything. Now, I want to move on to things I was a little more mixed on, and really it was just one aspect of the film that I felt kind of brought the pacing down just a hair. I feel this is just me being nitpicky, honestly, but the film switches perspective to a different character for like a short time that factors into the final act of the film, and I just felt like his scenes, when it was just him, they weren't really all that enjoyable to watch, to be honest. I was stuck with this character that didn't really have much to him, so I didn't really care that much about him. Also, side note, there is something after the credits that if you're a fan of Oz Perkins as a filmmaker as a whole, you might want to stick around for that. But I'll go into details about that in the spoiler section. And that is my cue to give you your spoiler warning. I'm going to be delving into spoilers for some major story details, just kind of going over what happened in the final act. So if you want to preserve your experience, I suggest skipping the spoiler section and going to my final score. I wanted to go into what causes this monkey to commit these horrific deaths. In a flashback sequence to when Bill and Hal are kids living with their single mother, played wonderfully by Tatiana Maslany, I might add, find the monkey toy mixed in with their dad's things after he basically abandoned the family, just up and left. Their father actually appears in the opening sequence, played by Adam Scott of all people, and I didn't expect him to actually appear in this movie, so that was a nice surprise there. And I thought that opening sequence was just great. It really sets the tone for what's going to happen later in the movie for sure. The boys decide to wind up the key in the monkey's back, and after doing so, the monkey does its creepy drumming with the music playing, and then later on their babysitter gets decapitated at a hibachi restaurant. Hal is the younger of the two brothers and the one that gets picked on by Bill. He's so angry at Bill and wants him dead, so he decides to wind up the monkey again with his brother in mind, almost kind of like Death Note, hoping that it would kill his brother only for it to kill their mother instead. This would be the opposite of Death Note. It's this act that sets up the whole story that unfolds later on when the two become adults. Hal, as an adult now, 25 years later, he's a bit of an absent father from his son Petey and has only a few days left to spend time with him before Petey becomes adopted by Hal's ex-wife's new boyfriend, played by Elijah Wood, for only one scene, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I really liked how the film shows how the monkey chooses to kill people. Like, it's very random. This thing has no qualms about killing anyone. It doesn't kill who you want it to. It's basically a coin toss. Whoever winds up the key, however, is the one who doesn't die. And all of these people in the film that do die, it's revealed that Hal's asshole brother Bill is actually in possession of the monkey and has been trying to get it to kill Hal for all this time, essentially being responsible for killing their mother, since he was the one that wound up the monkey toy. At the film's climax, when Hal and his son Petey eventually meet Bill after all those years of being estranged, he tries to reason with him that, you know, their mother's death was an accident, simply put, and it was no one's fault. But Bill still meets his demise after he tries to force the monkey to kill his brother, but decides to do him one better by drumming so fast that it literally causes chaos in the whole town. I mean, planes crashing, houses on fire, people are getting impaled to trees by surfboards. Like, it's ridiculous. It's pandemonium. Half the town is basically dead at this point, showcasing, you know, the power that this thing has. This next bit that I'm going to talk about was a bit on the nose in terms of the messaging, but at the end, when Hal and Petey have the monkey in their possession finally, they drive off out of town and try to come to terms with the fact that this thing is theirs. They need to accept it for what it is. They need to keep it close. But then as they come up to a stop sign, they see this guy on a horse who looks like a ghost, and there's like smoke trailing off of him. He's like riding a ghost horse, and this ghost looks at Hal and like nods to him, and Hal kind of, you know, nods back. And then the guy on the horse just kind of rides away. This is basically hinting at the fact that this ghostly figure is death itself, or the pale horseman, if you will. It's very direct, I will admit, and I kind of wish it was a little bit more subtle in the approach, but I think the film by the end is essentially saying that this is life. People die every day. It's random, it could happen to anyone. We just have to carry on living. And I think the film does a good job of delivering that message, even though the reveal of death made that message seem a bit more on the nose. Finally, I want to give some details on the post-credits scene, which isn't really a scene from the film or a deleted scene or an outtake or anything. This was actually a full-on teaser trailer for Oz's next film, which is called Keeper. This was apparently shot between Longlegs and the monkey, and it was during the writer's strike, which is just crazy to think about. So this guy's been busy for the past like 2 years. It being a teaser, of course, it doesn't show too much in way of reveals, but Tatiana Maslany is starring in it, and it takes place in one location, and the only details we have to go off of in terms of official plot details is that Maslany plays a character named Liz, who goes with her husband Malcolm to a remote cabin. Malcolm unexpectedly has to leave for some reason, and she's left alone with some sort of a sinister presence in the house with her. It's not being written by Perkins this time around, as writing duties were handled by Nick Leppard, but it is set to release October 3rd of this year. I actually thought that was a pretty clever use of, you know, promoting his next film, so I'm eager to learn more when we get a proper first trailer, hopefully in the next few months. I'm looking forward to reacting to that. For my final verdict, I'm giving The Monkey a score of 5 out of 5. Director and writer Osgood Perkins impresses immensely with a smartly written script that tackles the randomness of death in darkly funny and witty ways. Lead star Theo James is fantastic as twin brothers Bill and Hal. The creative execution of the over-the-top and gory death scenes add even more entertainment value to the whole package with how ridiculous they become, making The Monkey one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations. But now I want to know what you guys thought of The Monkey. Did you get the chance to check it out yet? If so, where would you place it on your list of, you know, Stephen King adaptations in terms of like quality? What story of his would you like to see adapted next that hasn't been adapted yet, or maybe remade with a different, you know, director, different cast? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below, and while you're at it, don't be afraid to hit that like button, sub to the channel, bell icon turned on, all that good stuff. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay classy, stay geeky, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Everything okay up there?
Yeah, everything's fine.